Good evening. My name is Jamie. I want to share with you my context project. And my context is taking the UCC extravagant welcome of whoever you are and wherever you are on life's journey. You are welcomed here, or you are welcome to this table. My question is, how do you do that extravagant welcome, especially to people who have been hurt within the churches? How do you do that extravagant welcome to someone who has been hurt by the name of God or by the name of Jesus? How do you get them to trust you again, to welcome them back into your church, when most of them won't even enter your church? And so this last week, let me take you back a little bit. Starting on November 20th, which was a Wednesday night, here in Las Vegas, we had our first Las Vegas Trans Pride event. And let me explain what I did and how I got to do this too. For 6 years prior to this, I have been hosting the Transgender Day of Remembrance Vigil for the past 6 years. And then the past 3 years, there was another organization out here, Gender Justice Nevada, who approached me about piggybacking off of my day, and I usually have the vigil on a Friday night, and they asked if they could host an event on Saturday, and they called it Transgender Day of Empowerment. I said, sure, let's go for it. That would be nice, a nice 2-day event. Then, 2 years ago, I thought it would be neat to start bringing awareness about the Transgender Day of Awareness. So the past 2 years, I would sit out at UNLV, which is a university out here in Las Vegas. And so I would sit out in their quad from 7 a.m. in the morning till 7 p.m. at night with a wall that I have constructed for the past 2 years here, showing all the victims of hate crimes, of transgender individuals who were killed in hate crimes from 1970 until now. And these are just victims that were killed in hate crimes. It's not suicides or anything like that, or somebody who passed away naturally. This is only people who were killed in violent and heinous crimes. So I've done that for the past 2 years. I would set up the wall and have an outreach table, which would have information of different community outreaches for transgender individuals within the community. And so that has been going well too for the past 2 years. So this year, I really felt the need to expand the event. And I wanted it to be a week where trans individuals, and I felt the need out here in Las Vegas that we really need to do something different. And so I decided, what if I did a Trans Pride event? And what this consisted of, on Wednesday evening, November 20th, we had a march starting at 7 p.m. And everything started from the center here in Las Vegas, the LGBTQ center. And so we marched from the center up to City Hall. And then once we got to City Hall, we had some speeches and speakers down there and everything for everybody. And it lasted about an hour or two by the time we marched and everything and got to City Hall. It was a 1.2-mile walk. And for our first march, I thought it was rather successful because we had 80 people out there. Then on Thursday, I I displayed the wall that I have constructed, and I displayed that from 10 a.m. till 7 p.m. at the center. And of course, that was to bring awareness for the Transgender Day of Remembrance Day. And so again, I put up the table and everything, and of community outreaches, and I had some people that came in and they would sing and everything, and we had singing around the wall. We shared some words. Later in that evening, we had a dialogue, which started at 5 p.m. until about 7 p.m. And the dialogue was on bridging the gap within the transgender community here in Las Vegas. So we had different aspects of our community come together, like from the sex workers that are here in Las Vegas in the trans community, and some other people who normally don't come to the center, like some African American groups or some other racial groups. We had come, even some of our Latinos and Latinas came and joined us. And so we had that dialogue on Thursday evening, which was an interesting dialogue, and we decided we need to work on building the bridge. And so we're going to have more conversation on that. Next month we will have another session of starting. We established that we did have a problem here in Las Vegas. Now next month we will on how to start bridging that gap. So that was on Thursday. Friday at 7 p.m. at the center, we had the Transgender Day of Remembrance vigil, the actual vigil where we read the names and all that. We have some music and everything. And so, of course, we read only 75 of the names rather than 238 of the names because of time frame and everything. And that's the same with the wall that I have constructed. I cannot afford to do 238 names on my wall, so I put up 75 of the names. I used the original website that came out many years ago, about maybe 10 years ago now, which is transgenderdow.org, in which it was started by Ethan Pierre, who is a trans man. And so he's worked on that website for many years. And in fact, this year he sold the website, and it does have a new owner to it. But I get my list from there for whose names we read and whose names I put up on my wall that I constructed, because all the names that are on his list have been accurately verified of being deaths of hate crimes. The other list is off of Transrespect Transphobia, and that's the one that shows 238 names. Some of those are questionable, and I don't really use that list because, like I said, because of the cost of constructing my wall, which I have built over the past few years, and also the time for the vigil. It takes less time to read 75 names than it does 238 names. But we do remember them. For all those that we don't mention, we do remember them during our vigils and stuff like that. So we have that on Friday evening. And then Saturday, we had our Transgender Day of Empowerment, which is a day that we set up, which we have workshops, we have different vendors that come in, a health resource, and different community outreaches that come in, and we have a prideful event that day, an empowering event that day, that helps uplift anybody, trans individuals or our allies. We have workshops that somebody can come and learn a little bit more about what is being transgender and all that. The workshop that I hosted that day was called Trans, Faith, and Spirituality, which I had 5 different panelists of different faith backgrounds, and we had a dialogue and then a question and answer forum. And so that went very well. And then on Sunday, we had, it was our day of transgender day of celebration, in which starting at 4 p.m. we had Trans America's Youth Got Talent, which started at the center, and we featured our transgender youth in which they performed and stuff. And then later in the evening, we went to one of the clubs here and had a social mixer at the club to finish out the week. But on Sunday at 2 o'clock, before the day of celebration kicked off, I added something very different to the Trans Pride event, and that was a transgendered worship service. Originally, when I was going to have the worship service, it was going to follow our regular format service that we have for Mary Magdalene Friends UCC. So we were going to follow our traditional UCC format, and of course have communion and all that, and of course read scriptures. But it changed a little bit after I had some dialogue with some people, and as myself, as being a transgender individual, I have been hurt by churches in the past, and in speaking with some of the individuals, if they would like to attend our service, they said no, because they didn't want to come into a place where we were going to talk about God or Jesus. So that weighed on me for a little bit, and then I talked with Reverend Kay, who is the senior pastor, the founder of Mary Magdalene Friends, and I approached her and said, Reverend Kay, if we're going to do this service, what if we had a service where we didn't talk about God or Jesus? And so we both thought about it, and we came up with a worship service where we didn't even have communion, we didn't talk about God, or we didn't talk about Jesus. But we did try to connect them spiritually. So I want to play that for you on my Context project here, the worship service that we did to do an extravagant welcome and to welcome anybody into our worship space. Now, part of this too is where we held the worship service was at the center, which is not our normal worship space. So what we did was actually take the worship service to them instead of them coming to us, because otherwise they would have never came into our worship space if I just invited them to come to our church. Just a mention of church will scare many transgender individuals not to come, because they think you're going to sit there and you're going to talk about a judgmental God who has the name has hurt them. So as much as I believe in UCC and I believe in the mission for UCC, I have a problem with how do we actually extend that extravagant welcome to somebody who's been hurt, especially within the transgender community. So we came up with a worship service, and we had 3 different segments of it: the I segment, the U segment, and the Planet Earth segment. And you will see how we tied that all in together, and it gave you a spiritual touch. And instead of God, we used the word, at least during my portion, I used the word creator. So I took out a word that people associate with judgment. So I took out the name God and just put in the creator aspect. And it was easier for people to embrace and easier for people to incorporate, I guess, into a spiritual realm. So I think we hit something on how to do an extravagant welcome and to welcome somebody into our worship space. Or actually, we took the worship space to them. And after all, isn't that what Jesus did in his walk of life? Didn't he go to the people, not necessarily that they came to him, but he would go to them also and invite anybody in, not necessarily that they had to share the same views. So it's a matter of time and trust factor, and again, building a bridge to our community, which I think is something, if I am to build a ministry and if I am to reach the transgender community, I have to build that bridge slowly and not push my way back into and cause the harm again or the uncertainty that they have with worshiping a God right now. So I want to start playing this video so you can see how we took this extravagant welcome and we included everybody from different faith backgrounds. We had, of course, you'll see the one gal, Holly, who will do a Native American reading. So we've kind of incorporated so whatever faith you were included in that worship service. So, and I also want to apologize again for my absence within the class. But this whole planning of this 5-day event has taken the last 2 months of pretty much most of my days in planning, other than working. It was between work and planning for this event, and I felt I needed to do it this year more than anything. I felt like it was time for our community, and so I took that risk, and I tried to bridge the gap in our community and bring our community closer together. I think it was a successful event for us, and I think I think I've met all the goals this week that I needed to in hosting this event. And so I apologize for my absence within the class, for not being active or participatory in all the dialogue. But at the same time, this is an outreach that needed to be done in our community right here in Las Vegas. I think it was time for us to reach out and start bridging. And once we in the transgender community can bridge our own gaps, then can we start reaching out and bridging the gaps to other sectors, to the gay lesbians, to the bisexuals, and then to our heterosexual counterparts. First, we have to fix our own problems, and we have to stand up for our own problems. So this week for us, it was a week of being prideful, a week for bringing about awareness, a week of remembering those who lost their lives, a week of empowerment, and a week of celebration. in the 5 days events, those were what came about. And I think it was a week of liberation also. And I think that's what our worship service on Sunday also did. It became a worship service of liberation. We just had to put a new face to God and to Jesus. But we had to put it in the face, we had to put God in a face that would not bring up or harm anybody as it has in the past. So I will stop here now talking and rambling on, but I will play the worship service for you, and I hope you can appreciate what we did assemble together, so we could bring in people from different faith backgrounds into a worship service that would be inclusive and an extravagant welcome, which is whoever you are and wherever you're on life's journey, you are welcomed here. And I think we did hit that niche. So this is what I offer on my Context project. Thank you.
She's an award-winning instrumentalist, as you might guess from just listening to her. A national recording artist and a four-time Grammy Award contender, a singer, a songwriter, a composer, and an author. She's also a proud political trans activist and lecturer. in her price range. Thank you, Ms. Ann, for participating in our service. We're mighty glad to have you here. I would like to introduce to you the rest of the staff of this service. We are honored to have with us the Reverend Greg Davis. Greg, would you stand? Greg is the pastor of Northwest Community Church, and he graciously consented to come today to assist Jamie and me because we're only half of the regular co-pastoral staff at Mary Magdalene Friends. Jamie Sprague is our student pastor, and she's the president of the Mary Magdalene. I used to work for an organization called Women and Family Services. Boy, that just popped out. Mary Magdalene Friends. All right. Jamie's a student pastor. She's currently attending the Pacific School of Religion, and the congregation is prayerfully hoping that she will complete her studies and her ordination before I drop dead.
Now I have a time limit.
Yes, right, exactly. Also participating in the service today is Holly Reese. Holly, where did you get to?
Right here.
Ah, there you go. Holly is going to share a reading with us later on, and we thank you very much, Holly, for agreeing to do that. I would like to thank the Suki and Sammy who were sitting at the table and checking you all in, and everyone who's here, all of the people who brought food that you're going to be sharing later on, so what else am I forgetting?
And as you know, this is the final day of Trans Pride Week. And this is our first ever trans worship service. It's a way of reaching out into the community and bringing a place of worship to you. This is beyond our traditional worship service because we want to include everybody. Because we are, in one way, we are one family as people and as part of this planet that we live on. So that's why you'll see this really untraditional worship service, and I love it. Because we need to reach out to different faiths, different backgrounds of belief systems, as we are to grow as a people, regardless how you believe. And as a more extravagant welcome, whoever you are, wherever you are in life's journey, you are welcome to come worship with us. And whichever way that may mean. Today, after the worship service, we do have other events that will occur here, which will be the day of celebration, which we will have some entertainment, singing for everybody. And then after that, that will happen from 4 to 6 p.m. And then from 6 until closing up at Club Metro is the final segment, which will be our final mixer, and Lady Jasmine will be hosting that event down there.
Suki, would you like to maybe bring the clipboard over here so that this gentleman can sign in and name it for him to make it for us? Oh, would you be willing? Oh, we're going ahead. Thank you. We're going ahead, absolutely. We don't want to miss anyone. We don't want to exclude anyone. We want everyone to be a part of the service. Super. All right. Okay, and now we begin our service of worship. Thank you, Miss.
You know, when we come out as our true authentic selves, no matter what that is, sometimes it's a difficult road. For trans people in particular, sometimes there's a cost involved. Sometimes it can cost you as much as your family and friends, your job, your career, your house, your spouse, your kids. And as we can see behind us, sometimes it can even cost you your life. And so, some people regard being trans as gender dysphoria, but you know, personally, I regard it as gender euphoria. Because I think it's a blessing, and I think we've been chosen, actually, unbeknownst to us, for a greater cause that's bigger than ourselves, to do good things and pay it forward. And so, for me, being trans, I have embraced the notion that it is a joyous celebration. And in that spirit, I want to play you some music that I arranged and recorded. And I put it on the radio. It's my own version of Beethoven's Ode to Joy.
And so, in our service today, we are celebrating. And we're going to begin by celebrating I. So, I want you each to point to yourselves and say, I am valuable.
I am valuable.
Yes, you are valuable. It is my belief that we are all mind, body, and spirit. And that spirit piece is ever so holy. That is such a valuable piece of who we are. This is the table that I call the I table. And it has some I things on it. Actually, they're very much I things. They're my I things. They may suggest, once upon a time I tried to do exercises. Because my doctor said, yes, yes, you need to do that, Kay. In fact, I just had my annual exam on Friday, and she said it again. So I dug those out of storage. Well, we'll see whether anything happens or not. I'm going to ask each of you to share a little bit about your I. So you think for a moment, because this is what I'm going to ask you to do, just very short and sweet. I want you first to say I am and your first name, or if you go by two names, fine. That's part of your first name, right, Barbara Jean? All right. So I want you to, your first sentence to be, I am and your name. I want your second sentence to be, I am and an adjective that you think best describes you. Maybe it's, I am awesome. Maybe it's, I am bashful. Maybe it's, I am, you could extend it to 2 words, exotically beautiful. I would say, I am Kay, and I am friendly. And you would say, I am Tony. Oh, sorry. We'll get right down there to you, okay? I am Tony, and I am loving.
I am Holly and I am joyful.
I'm Irene, and I'm Grace.
I'm Mark Eugene, and I'm proud.
All right.
I am Mel, and I'm cheerful.
All right.
I'm Tanya, and I'm compassionate. And I'm grateful.
Just as Isaiah,
Cute.
cute. Oh, no. Okay, my name's Howie, and I am,
All right.
I am Joel and I'm
Oh, wonderful.
I'm Brian, and I am successful.
Good.
I'm Liz, and I'm truthful. I am Mother Bear. I'm a caretaker.
All right.
I'm Bridget. I am tired.
Ah, I get that.
I'm Vanessa, I'm a wanderer.
Ah, all right. Let's start at the back, way at the back.
I am Dave, and I am in love.
Ah. All right.
I am compositee, and I am sacred.
All right.
I am Holly and AJ, and I am stressed out, but proud to be here at this moment. I could say I'm happy. Sorry, and I'm also
You're
wordy.
good. All right.
I am Holly, and I am forgiving.
All right.
I am Victor, and I'm adventurous.
I'm James, and I'm loving Las Vegas.
Good.
I'm Silvio, and I'm you.
All right.
I'm Suki, and I'm inspired.
Ooh.
I'm Sammy, and I'm super loud. And last but not least, this is Dustin, and he is adorable.
Ah. We're glad. All right. Yes, ma'am. All right. All right. You have the rest of your life. You have the rest of your life. Time for somebody to explain it. Oh, you want it to be done quickly? Oh. All right. All right, yes you are. I'm sorry, tell me louder. Yes, you are. All right.
planet Earth is the only real temple, and every second that we waste is to try to know the truth or some kind of, trying to know the truth or some kind of definitive dogma is the second we are turning our backs on the real answer. The church is not a building. It is not a bureaucratic organization governed by human ideas and administered by human administrators. The real church is a spiritual phenomenon, an emotional reality, a living, breathing thing that passes from person to person like tongues of fire that we can feel inside. In our hearts, when we recognize that we are loved, that we are free to love others, and that we are free to love others. The real church can speak through any language. It can manifest to any culture. It exists as much within the Catholic as it does within the Lakota. As our society, our deep need for remembrance, reconciliation, and recommitment has now become a matter of survival. And none of these things can happen on American soil without each of us, as a culture, coming to grip with our country's spiritual origin stories. Today, we must acknowledge that those stories represent ongoing cycles of violence. Today, we must take responsibility for the fact that ours is a broken culture where the other is routinely used and abused on the altar of our ignorance and our fear of one another, and that is quite literally killing us all. Today, we must recognize that only our antidote to hatred and violence, no matter how vindicated it might feel inside of our hearts at times like these, the only antidote to those things, the only possibility of transformation comes from our compassion and our ability to make a community. And in those things alone is a true spiritual calling. Today, I would like each of us at some point, for each of us to acknowledge the fire in our hearts, in our minds, in our actions that connects us, that we might lead and pass this fire on to those that we touch. Sorry. Okay, so this is Lakota, and I know we pronounce this differently, so forgive me.
Report.
Metakuyaso, Aho, all my relations. I honor you in this circle of life with me today. I am grateful for this opportunity to acknowledge you in this prayer. To the Creator, for the ultimate gift of life, I thank you. To the mineral nation that has built and maintained my bones and all foundations of life experience, I thank you. To the plant nation that sustains my organs and body and gives me healing herbs for sickness, I thank you. To the animal nation that feeds me from your own flesh and offers me your loyal companionship in this walk of life, I thank you. To the human nation that shares my path as a soul upon the sacred wheel of earthly life, I thank you. To the spirit nation that guides me invisibly through the ups and downs of life and for carrying the torch of light through the ages, I thank you. To the four winds of change and growth, I thank you. For all my relations, my relatives, without whom I could not live. We are in the circle of life together, coexisting, codependent, co-creating our destiny. One not more important than the other. One nation evolving from the other, and yet each dependent upon the one above and the one below. All of us as a part of the great mystery. Me which I thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Thank you for letting me be here with you in this incredible community today. You know, I have a secret that I want to tell you. And the secret is that when I was trying to think about what my attitude was going to be about myself, the first thing in my brain was I am complete. And I thought, you know, I don't know that I believe that's true. You see, for several years, at least 5, I have had a series of revelations in my life. 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I decided to go off to seminary at age 50 years old to study theology. And when I got to Pacific School of Religion, across the hall was Ben. Ben was a trans man studying for the chaplaincy. I was from Oklahoma. I didn't understand Ben. Then I found out another secret, that Ben went to the same university that I went to, Oklahoma Baptist University. I had found another secret, and I continue to get these revelations. And I continue to this day to get revelations knowing this community. And I realize that there's only one letter different between revelation and revolution. And that is you. You see, you all have been part of my life, whether I just met you or not. You have given me texture in my life. Something that I didn't have before. You've given me nutrition, much like the milk of a mother. And you've showed me that life is so much more than the box that I was living in. You also gave me a fruity essence that I never imagined would be part of this old Southern Baptist boy's life. But I think what you really have given me is not only the openness to really believe that all of God's creation is something special. Not really to believe that we are all different and that we are all in process. But you have showed me what transformation is all about. You have showed me that transformation can be physical, that transformation can be spiritual, that transformation can be emotional. And you've shown me that transformation is real. So here's to you today. Continue to shine your light of transformation in all parts of who you are, so that you can feel more complete, so that you can feel completeness in the things that you might see are missing in your life. Your life can be a blessing to you. So here's to you.
We have decided today that the offering that we collect will be divided equally between the Trans Pride Fund for 2014 and Rainbow House and Rainbow Hotline. And so if you are choosing to place something in the offering plate today, you will understand what is going to happen to it, with it. I'm going to ask you to do this section first, and then do this section, and then hit the rest of us, okay? You do it however you want to. You think, you go ahead. I'll let you use your own good judgment. There you go. I do want to say, because I neglected to say at the welcome, that the pink rose on the I table is for Amy, the newest member of Mary Magdalene Friends, who was born on Monday last week. And we're happy to have her. We're happy to have her and her mommy and her little brother here today.
the camera. Okay.
The Spirit is in you, that is in you. The Spirit is that is between and among us. Blesses these gifts. And we ask for the power of that Spirit to help us use them wisely. So be it.
Each of us has learned the I in us is important. We are all valuable. We are all sacred. We learn that the you in us is part of a revolution, is part of a revelation as we continue to grow with one another, and to grow within the planet we live. And that is our planet Earth. How do we come to live in peace within the planet that we dwell in? Regardless how you believe that you are put here, we are here. And we have to accept that fact. And you know what? I think we're forgetting that fact sometimes because we're destroying our Mother Earth. We as stewards of this planet have to come to realize the importance of it. Every day, each of us, we wake up and we cleanse ourselves so we can go out into the world and bathe. Just dip your finger in it. Appreciate the water that you have in your life, as it is your cleansing spirit. The fruit of the trees that are given us, we depend on that water that we clean ourselves with to nourish the fruit, the trees, the plants that surround us. But if we just abuse that water, what are we doing to our food? What are we doing to our precious trees? What are we doing to the fruit that we eat and consume? We all have to stand up together and start treating the place we dwell in with more respect. Because this is our spiritual realm. This is our home. We together are united. We are one people. Yes, we have different race. We may be of different color. We may be of different parents. We may be of different beliefs. But yet all one. We are worshiping one Creator, one Spirit. We all come from the same background. We all came from birth. The greenery in our lives, we look at it, and we can grow from the greenery. We can grow just like the branches of the trees. We can grow and nourish ourselves and nourish each other as we support one another in each other's lives, in each other's endeavors. Do not become a hindrance to somebody. Encourage somebody. Encourage your neighbor, encourage your friends. Get to know one another. We have become a world, a planet of living just for ourselves. We need to learn how to become a planet that lives with each other, and we learn how to live with the planet we live in. And the rainbow, that should be a representation for all of us living together.
sometimes, this internalized transphobia, a kind of self-loathing. So there's pressures from without and within, and so not long ago I looked up in the stars and I asked the universe, why is it that I'm doing all this? I asked the universe, is it because I was a failure as a man? And the universe smiled back at me and said, sweetheart, how could you be a failure as a man when you never were a man in the first place? Well, that was a big relief for me. Because I know trans people push a lot of society's buttons, challenging something as basic as your birth and anatomy. So, when I looked up in the sky, I saw each star, each twinkling star, as a trans friend that we lost too soon. And I would remind all of you who have a heavy heart today, they're carrying a burden, to just put it down. Because it's a wonderful world. I see trees of green, red roses too. I see them bloom for me and you. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I see skies of blue and clouds of white, the bright blessed day, and those long, lonely nights. Still, I think to myself, what a wonderful world. The colors of the rainbow, so pretty in the sky, are also on the faces of people passing by. I see friends shaking hands, saying how do you do. They're really saying, I love you. I hear babies cry. We watch them grow. They'll learn much more than we'll ever know. And I think to myself, what a wonderful world. I think to myself, just look around you. What a wonderful world. You know, it really could be a wonderful world if we all just play nice together.
Thank you all for being here. Thank those of you who participated in the service. Your help was greatly appreciated. I hope that the value of our message has touched you in some way. And will you join us together in unison for our benediction? May the eye
I
value itself and others. May you live in harmony with the I and others, knowing that peace is not the absence of war, but the presence of justice. May peace be with each of us and between us, and may we bless the earth with our care of it. So be it. Thank you, my friends. A table is set at the back of the room, where it is Mary Magdalene Friends tradition. If you look at many of us, you will understand that we enjoy eating and do desire to commune in the early church way by Mary. So please come to the back, grab a plate, and our minister of hospitality is quickly getting things set up to be just for you to do that. Please greet one another and then grab a plate.
Smile, Christy. This is for Jamie's class. Jamie's. After you stuck your tongue out.
Only in affection.
Not gonna say any? Okay.
No.
I guess that's telling you, isn't it? I cleaned them last week, he said.